we now come to the part, as I mentioned on Wednesday, where we completely disagree with this next team and their draft. This is one of your least favorite drafts, and it is one of my elite drafts.
All right.
The Houston Texans. And I could see the difference. I don't understand, and I have no idea what you're going to say, but I have an idea, and I don't completely disagree with where you're going to come from. For me, okay, and we talked about this before. I'm looking at what you got. What do we got in this draft? What do we got? And I got my franchise quarterback and my franchise edge rusher in the same draft, and then throw in the fact that you're now again. I understand that Scruggs going 62, bit of a reach, but does he become their starting center for the next 10 years? I don't know. I mean, he better. We talked about and then they also added Patterson too, maybe as an insurance policy. But we also talked about maybe adding some receivers. Now, I know that you didn't feel like they needed to as much as I did. And maybe this is also part of it, because we even talked about the possibility, by the way, of Tank Dell going to Houston. Yeah. And that's exactly where he went.
Right down the road.
Throw in Hutchinson in round 6, which I was hoping the Jets were going to pick him up because he was available. Later on, didn't realize, of course, that maybe I should have, that they were going to hold that spot for Randall Cobb, but which I think is a mistake over Hutchinson. But I just really liked the draft because I liked not just the fact that, like I said at the beginning, that you get your quarterback and you get your edge rusher, but when I'm just looking at names and positions, I think they'll add a lot of guys that are going to contribute for this football team.
Yeah, and you're not wrong, right? If they get their franchise quarterbacks, meaning if CJ Stroud is signing a second contract with this team 4 to 5 years from now, and so is Will Anderson, meaning that they played quality football, they're one of the best players in their position 4 or 5 years from now, they deserve this big payday. It's hard to look at this draft and say it's a bad job. But to me, the other 6 or 7 picks that they had, they left a lot of value on the table. This was more about what they could have done had they not traded up. Trust me, Will Anderson, I had as one of the 2 elite players in this class. He definitely deserved to trade up. But the price in which it took for them to move up there was by far the biggest overpay of all the drafts in a record-setting draft weekend with the amount of trades that we saw. This was by far the biggest overpay. And, this had DeMeco Ryan saying, hey, I need my Bosa, my version of Bosa, coming from San Fran to Houston.
So do whatever you have to get him.
Do whatever you have to do. And I'm a value guy, and I don't believe in just saying one guy that you fell in love with. And Will Anderson, to me, is a guy that you fall in love with in interviews and you dream of what he could be. And trust me, my grade says he's going to be a really good player too, maybe even all-pro. But, so I kind of left that trade as saying, wow, that was something that's going to compromise their future a little bit.
First of all, I don't think Will Anderson can just be an all-pro.
Right.
And this works out. Will Anderson has to be maybe Hall of Fame caliber player.
Honestly, yeah, you're right. A, picking third. B, you basically sold all these future first-round picks, or a future first-round pick and other draft capital as well. I don't want to get it wrong, but it was a huge price. I keep track of every value. I have a couple different draft value charts that I use, and this was a massive overpay, almost like giving a first-round pick away for free type overpay. And the Juice Scruggs pick, not only did it bother me, they traded up for him.
Yeah. Why do you think they did that? Every year we say, hey, it only takes one. It only takes one scout, one GM. They fall in love with the player, and there you go. Why do you think they fell in love with Juice Scruggs?
It had to be an intangible. I mean, you can't – I went back and watched some of his tape because I wanted to see if I missed out on something, and I walked away with the same notes I walked in with. Average player at best. Inside-out versatility, sure. A little bit bigger, longer than some of the other guards and centers in this class, sure. But to say that, A, you had to trade up for him, unless they had some intel, maybe they did, I don't know. And B, you couldn't settle with someone else. I always look at when you trade up for someone, what could you have gotten if you did not trade up? And I view that with the Will Anderson trade. I view that with the Juice Scruggs trade.
Who was
That I
available? Because once Schmitz and Tittman left, now of course the kid from Ohio State they could have grabbed
yeah, at
definitely,
any point in the draft. Yeah, but
and the kid from Michigan was
yes,
still
I like
available.
Timmy a little bit better than him. I mean,
And they
I
got
like
Patterson, by
Andrews.
the way, in the 6th round,
Right.
who
Exactly.
was potentially a better overall prospect.
Jake Andrews goes just a few picks later, or
Okay.
I'm sorry, in the 4th round to New England. I liked him a little better. Nick Saldiveri, the tackle from Old Dominion that many are saying will be a guard center in the NFL. I like Timmy. So, if they had simply just stayed put and took Scruggs in round 3, I'd been like, okay, they liked him more. But the fact that they traded up for him and gave other capital away on a team that needs a lot of talent, I just left myself scratching my head. And I wasn't a huge Tank Dell guy.
Well, we knew he
Kind
was
of
going to go in the 2nd or 3rd round because we talked
right,
about Tutu Atwell.
right. The movement traits.
But he's a lot better
there.
than Tutu Atwell. Okay,
He
just
is.
get that through. Yeah.
He's more dynamic. He could do different things. He's a competitor. He's more competitive. He's a better returner than Tutu Atwell.
And how do we know that he's a competitor?
That his name's Tank. He's just a tough dude. He's a fun kid to watch football, and sometimes, I don't like criticizing draft picks. I really don't. I don't want to rain on these kids' parades. I don't want to act like I know what I'm doing more. I'm just saying, from my perspective, a wide receiver that weighs under 170 pounds, it almost never works out at the next level unless there's a huge standout trait. And I guess the change of direction for them was there. But I did like the back half of their draft. I thought it was decent. I love the linebacker that they got from Alabama, Teoto. He's going to be a starting linebacker there.
Yeah,
He's
how does he fit with D'Amico? Because we talked, because we know now. I don't know if, because probably not, but he is at some point going to need to get his star linebacker, his guy, his dude.
Yeah.
So how can this guy contribute?
He did not get him this year, but I do think this is going to be the guy that is next to the dude for a long time. Teoto he's kind of what D'Amico Ryans was coming out of Alabama. A little unathletic, maybe not the biggest, but smart, a leader, can call the shots. You trust him in the middle of your defense to put people in the right position. I kept on bringing up the name Antonio Pierce, and Antonio Pierce, to me, was a very similar linebacker to D'Amico Ryans. So I think that he's going to be that reliable number 2 inside. And it's just going to take him another year or two to find the number 1 guy. But Dylan Horton didn't love the pick there. I just think that he's a guy that is just measurable only. Just for every 2 or 3 quality plays he has on tape, he's got 20 that I just don't like. Where he just can't hold the edge. Doesn't have a lot of versatility to his pass rush game.
How about to get Ali Gay after the draft?
If you told me Ali Gay was the pick instead of Horton, I would have liked it more.
See? So that's sometimes how it works out. Yeah.
I love the undrafted free agency pick. There was a medical there that bumped him out of the draft. Again, you don't get some of this stuff until after because I guess just they want to keep it quiet. But that's where I think that he'll end up. Horton is going to end up behind Gay in this depth chart in time. And again, so I look at what could you have gotten with that 4th-round pick that you was. Sure. There was a lot of 4th-round talent available in this draft, and I believe that they kind of missed the boat there.
See, here's the thing with what Nick Caserio's done, and I think that his approach in the last year or two of the way that he's made deals and the way that he's revamping this entire roster, which is not very good, I think his approach has been excellent. But the question comes from, is he picking the right guys?
Right.
And one of the things you really have to do is look at it last year. Look at the fact that he had the option to pick the top corner in the draft. And even though it's only 1 year, it looks like he picked the wrong one.
Yep.
So
that's a good way of putting it. I love the approach from a bird's eye lens. Is he picking the right guys? Is he leaving the right guys on the table? Willie Anderson, much better football player than Lucas Van Ness, but they could have had Van Ness if they wanted that pure edge guy with their 12th pick and also next year's 1st-round pick and all the other capital that they gave up. Or they could have drafted, if they wanted a true slot to add to CJ Stroud, why not add the college teammate, Jackson Smith-Njigba, with that 12th overall pick and also be able to maintain that future draft capital. That's the road I go down. The bird's eye lens, great approach, knows what he's doing. But like you said, is he picking the right players?
The good news is up until the point, and you hope it comes, and it should come if you make the playoffs and so forth, that your window, the number of picks all of a sudden, you're not going to be drafting 10 guys and 12 guys, and you're going to be 5 guys in one draft, and you're going to be looking for those really top guys instead of a package. That's when you really have to hit them. He, I think, benefits because he's able to, because again, when you just take a look at all the guys, the new rookies that he's added to this roster, names only, you go, okay, for the roster that they've had, nice addition, especially the offseason that he had with free agency. I like all of the new players that he has on this team now compared to last year's roster. Mm-hmm. You just question the decisions as far as making them, whether it's, giving Sheldon Rankins $14 million for a year, or even like some of the deals that we talked about, or picking a player in the second round when you could have picked like even Jared Patterson. Maybe Jared Patterson ends up as a better center than Juice Scruggs. And so at least there's some talent enough now on the roster that he didn't have before, meaning if he misses like he's prone to do, he now has some insurance.
Yeah.
So
anyway. I like it. Yep.
But at some point, just like you see with coaches that can get the team to the postseason, but they can't get them any further than that. Same thing with the GM. We don't know. Maybe he's the type of GM that can get Houston to the postseason, but he's not going to be the GM that's going to be able to get them to the Super Bowl. So We'll see. Anybody else that we didn't touch as far as the free agents? Valladay should help the running back room, maybe. And we talked about Gay.
Yep. I like Valladay. He was on my radar throughout the year. Kind of lost track of him. Didn't really get a lot of action in the pre-draft process. And it's a very crowded running back room, so I think it's going to be hard for him to really break through. But he's got the talent to be an NFL back, or at least on a depth chart. So I like what they did there in terms of bringing him in. And like you said, Ali Gay, I think he's going to make this team, and I think he's going to work his way up the depth chart before the end of the season.
All right, so the Houston Texans, one more thing is Hutchinson. I think he's one of these guys that's not going to test well. You know who I think he's very similar to? Alan Lazard.
Okay.
When Alan Lazard came out, I was like, wow, I watched a lot of Iowa State football those early days of that turnaround. And this guy was, as you know, man, that guy was everything in that passing game. He was the big receiver there. But you looked at him and you understood why some teams, he was like a tweener, why some teams, and he got blessed by going to the Packers and Aaron Rodgers. Mm-hmm. But you also have to come through, and he came through. And I could see Hutchinson doing the same thing. So
I like it.